Hello everyone, viewers. In the grand tapestry of human history, death is the one thread that ties us all together. It is the final, non-negotiable punctuation mark at the end of every life sentence. Kings, prophets, warriors and saints, they all meet the same end, all except one. In the ancient pre-flood world, a world teeming with giants and fallen gods, one man simply vanished. He didn't die. The scripture says, what did Enoch know? What secret was so dangerous, so potent, that God had to physically lift him from the fabric of reality to protect it? The answer isn't a simple story of a pious man. It's a cosmic conspiracy, a divine mission, and a journey into the very heart of heaven and hell that would change the destiny of the world forever. The story begins not with Enoch, but with the world he was born in. This was an age of legends walking the earth, an era when the veil between the heavens and our world was thin, almost transparent. Humanity, fresh from the Garden of Eden, was multiplying, their daughters famed for a beauty that was said to rival the very stars, and from above they were being watched. Not by God alone, but by a legion of his angels, the Watchers. Their duty was simple: to observe, to guide from a distance, but from their celestial perch, a corruption began to fester. A deep burning lust for the daughters of men, led by a powerful angel named Samiaza. A pact was sworn. 200 of these celestial beings, mighty and radiant, descended upon the peak of Mount Hermon, binding themselves by an oath, a curse, to see their forbidden desire fulfilled. They abandoned their heavenly. They took human wives, teaching them secrets that humanity was never meant to know. Azazel, one of the chief watchers, taught men the art of war, how to forge swords, shields, and breastplates. He taught women the art of deception, how to make cosmetics, to paint their eyelids, to adorn themselves with bracelets and jewels, turning innocence into artifice. Other watchers taught sorcery, the cutting of roots for magical potions, astrology, the reading of the stars not for navigation, but for divination, for charting destinies that were not theirs to chart. The world was intoxicated by this forbidden knowledge. It spread like a wildfire, burning through the soul of mankind. But this unholy union of heaven and earth bore a monstrous fruit. Their children, beings of immense size and strength, with an insatiable, ravenous hunger. The book of Enoch describes them as towering figures, 3,000 cubits tall. They consumed all the acquisitions of men, and when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned upon them and devoured mankind. They began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink them. The world became a charnel house, a playground for these demigod tyrants. The sweet air grew thick with the stench of blood and the smoke of strange incantations. The very laws of nature seemed to bend and break under the weight of this cosmic transgression. Humanity, once God's prized creation, was now enslaved, corrupted and hunted, and from the blood-soaked ground, a cry for help rose to the... It was into this world of chaos, this age of monsters and broken covenants, that Enoch was born. He was the seventh from Adam, a lineage that carried a special weight. He was not a king. He did not command armies. He was a simple man, a father, a husband. But in a world that had turned its back on its creator, Enoch did something revolutionary. He walked with God. Imagine walking through your fields, and beside you is an invisible, all-powerful presence, his voice not a thunderclap, but a whisper in your soul, guiding you, teaching you, sharing with you the deep secrets of creation. While the world was learning the arts of war and seduction from fallen angels, Enoch was learning the patterns of the stars, the changing of the seasons, the language of righteousness from the source of all things. His spirit was a tranquil pool in a world raging with a tempest, but his peace was not destined to last. God saw the state of the world. He heard the screams of the innocent and the arrogant laughter of the Nephilim. The Watchers had broken their sacred trust, and judgment was coming. A great flood, a cataclysm to wash the world clean of its filth. But before the waters were unleashed, a message had to be delivered, and God did not choose an archangel armed with a flaming sword for this task. He chose the mortal man who walked with him. He chose Enoch. One day, during his communion with the divine, the world around Enoch dissolved. He was lifted, not by his own power, but by a force that felt like the universe itself breathing him in. The angels Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel appeared before him. They came with a mission, a charge from the throne of the almighty Enoch. The Son of Man was to be God's messenger. His audience, the 200 fallen watchers, his message, their final, irrevocable doom. Imagine the terror. Enoch, a man of flesh and blood, was being commanded to stand before immortal beings who had defied God himself, beings who had sired monsters and taught humanity the path to its own destruction. He was to travel to their place of gathering and look them in their celestial eyes and tell them, "Your petition will not be granted unto you for all the days of eternity. From henceforth you shall not ascend into heaven unto all eternity. And in bonds of the earth the decree has gone forth to bind you for all the days of the world." It was a death sentence, not a sentence of annihilation, but of eternal imprisonment and torment. Their request they were to be made a spectacle, an eternal lesson in the price of rebellion. Enoch's heart must have pounded like a war drum in his chest, but his faith was a shield. He accepted the mission guided by the archangels. He journeyed to the place where the fallen angels had gathered, a place between Lebanon and Sinai, a place of sorrow and regret. He found them not reveling in their power, but huddled together, their fate. The once proud watchers, the radiant sons of dawn, were now broken, terrified figures. They had seen the consequences of their sin. They had seen the monstrous nature of their offspring and the chaos they had unleashed. They felt the gaze of God upon them, and they knew their time was short. Enoch stood before them, a lone mortal in a council of the damned. He opened his mouth, and it was not his own voice that came out, but a voice. He recounted their sins, their lust, their betrayal, the forbidden knowledge they had taught, the blood that stained the earth because of them. He spoke of the eternal chains being forged for them in the depths of the earth, in a place of fire and pain. He told them their giant sons would be turned against each other, that they would watch their beloved offspring slaughter one another before their very eyes, and they would be powerless to stop it. And then he delivered as he spoke. A profound silence fell over the assembly. The weeping stopped. All that remained was the cold, heavy weight of eternal despair. The watchers didn't lash out in anger. They couldn't. They were in the presence of a judgment so final, so absolute, that all the fight had drained out of them. Enoch, the humble scribe, had become the mouthpiece of divine justice. If you find this ancient story of a mortal judging fallen angels as captivating as I do, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. The story only gets more cosmic from here, and you won't want to miss the journey Enoch takes next. Because his mission wasn't over. In fact, his true journey had just begun. After delivering the verdict, Enoch was not simply sent back home. He had proven he was to be given a tour of creation, a glimpse behind the curtain of reality itself. He was to be taken. The scriptures say it so simply, but the book of Enoch describes it in breathtaking detail. He was lifted from the earth by whirlwinds, his physical body transformed, made able to withstand the pressures and powers of the celestial realms. He ascended, leaving the corrupted world far below. This was the ethereal realm just above the earth, the great storehouse of the elements. He saw vast treasuries of snow, reservoirs of hail, and chambers for the clouds. He saw the dew stored in celestial vials. It was the engine room of Earth's weather, a place of immense and ordered power, managed by legions of angels ensuring the perfect balance of the seasons. He saw how every drop of rain was counted, every snow. Then he was lifted higher, to the second heaven. And here, the atmosphere changed. The beauty and order of the first heaven were gone, replaced by an unnerving darkness and a profound sense of sorrow. This was a prison. Hanging in the gloom were the angels who had joined Samyaza's rebellion, but had not yet been cast into the final abyss. They were suspended. They recognized Enoch as the one who had pronounced their doom, and they pleaded with him, "O Enoch, pray for us." But Enoch could only pass by in sorrow. Their fate was sealed. The sight of these once glorious beings, now stripped of their light and power, was a sobering reminder of the cost of disobedience. From the darkness of the second heaven, he ascended into a realm of pure, unimaginable, not the earthly garden from which Adam and Eve were exiled, but its heavenly archetype, the source of all earthly beauty. The colors were more vibrant than anything on earth. The air hummed with a melody of pure life. In the center stood the tree of life, its scent filling the entire realm, its fruit promising eternal vitality. Enoch saw the souls of the righteous dead, dwelling in bliss, awaiting the resurrection. This was the future that the watchers had traded for fleeting moments of earthly pleasure. The contrast was staggering. Next, the journey took him to the fourth heaven. This was the realm of the celestial bodies. Here, Enoch saw the intricate mechanics of the cosmos. He saw the sun and the moon, not as simple orbs of light, but as massive celestial chariots, guided by angels along precise tracks that determined day. He was shown the 12 gates through which the sun rises and sets throughout the year, explaining the solstices and equinoxes. He learned the secrets of the lunar cycle, the names of the sun and moon's angelic guides, and the laws that governed their movements. He was being shown the owner's manual for the universe. The knowledge was overwhelming, a torrent of astronomical and astrological data that would form the basis of the calendar. The fifth heaven was a place of martial power. Here Enoch saw legions upon legions of angels, the soldiers of the heavenly host. These were the Grigori, the watchers who had remained loyal. They were silent, ever vigilant, awaiting the command for the final battle at the end of time. Their sheer number was terrifying, an army that could unmake creation with a single command. Their presence was a testament to the immense. Enoch, the man of peace, was humbled by this display of divine military might. He ascended again to the sixth heaven. This was the administrative center of the universe. Here he saw 7 groups of archangels, the great celestial bureaucrats, who oversaw the orders of the universe. They were the ones who regulated the movements of the stars, maintained the balance of the elements, and recorded the deeds. Enoch saw them at their work, managing the cosmos with an efficiency and wisdom that was beyond human comprehension. It was a vision of a universe not just created, but actively and meticulously governed. Finally, he was brought to the threshold of the 7th heaven. The air here was different. It was not air at all, but pure, living fire. The light was so intense, this was the realm of God's immediate presence, the throne room of the Almighty. He saw the highest orders of angels, the cherubim, with their 4 faces and wings covered in eyes. The seraphim, beings of pure fire with 6 wings, who continuously circled the throne crying, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." And the Ophanim, the wheels within wheels, described as living, moving thrones of God covered in eyes and blazing with an unearthly light. They were terrifying and beautiful, alien and divine, and in the center of it all was the throne itself. It was made of sapphire, and from beneath it flowed rivers of fire. It was surrounded by a rainbow of emerald. Enoch could not see. The glory was too great, a great glory so immense that no mortal and perhaps no angel could look upon it and live. The light was not just light, it was knowledge, power, and love, all fused into a presence that was the source of all existence. Enoch fell on his face, his entire being dissolving in overwhelming awe and terror. He felt as if his soul was leaving his body, but the angel Michael came to him. He was told not to be afraid. He, a mortal man, had been granted an audience that even many angels were denied, and now his true purpose was to be revealed. He was no longer just a messenger. He was to become the scribe of heaven. He was brought to a place filled with books, countless scrolls containing all the knowledge of heaven and earth. The angel Pravuil, the keeper of the celestial records, brought him a stylus and scrolls, the laws of the sun, moon, and stars, the history of creation, the fall of the watchers, the judgment of the flood that was to come. But he also wrote down the future. He wrote of the history of Israel, the coming of a Messiah who would be born to save humanity, the great final battle between good and evil, and the last judgment where every soul would have to account for its deeds. He filled 366 books with. He understood the why behind everything, why the world was created, why evil was permitted, and how it would all be resolved in the end. This knowledge was a heavy burden. It was a fire in his bones. It was the answer to the question of why he was taken. No single human mind was meant to contain such a vast repository of divine truth. He had seen too much. He knew too much. He could no longer live a normal life. He was to gather his sons, especially Methuselah, and impart to them the wisdom he had learned. He was to teach them the path of righteousness, warn them of the coming judgment of the flood, and give them the books he had written so that this sacred knowledge would not be lost to humanity. He was transformed. The Bible says he lived 365 years, a year for every day of the solar cycle he now understood intimately. When he returned to his home, his eyes held the wisdom of ages, the deep and sometimes sorrowful knowledge of all that was and is to come. He gathered his children and the elders of his people. His voice was no longer that of a simple farmer, but that of a prophet speaking with the authority of one who has stood in the very throne room of God. He taught them about the coming flood, urging them to live righteously so they might be saved. He gave the books he had written to him. He instructed him to preserve them, to pass them down through the generations, for they contained the keys to understanding God's plan for humanity. These were emotional, heart-wrenching goodbyes. Enoch knew he would not see his family again in this life. He was a man caught between two worlds, no longer fully human, but not yet fully an angel. He had walked in the courts of heaven, but his heart still ached for the family. On the 30th day, as Enoch was speaking to his people, the sky grew dark. A whirlwind descended, and celestial beings appeared in a chariot of fire. His people fell on their faces in terror. Enoch, however, stood serene. His time was up. He gave his final blessing to his son Methuselah and stepped into the celestial chariot. In a flash of blinding light, he was lifted into the heavens. The legends say he did not remain a man. His earthly flesh was transformed into a being of pure spirit and fire. He became Metatron, one of the most powerful archangels in the heavenly host, the celestial scribe who stands closest to the throne of God, continuing the work he began during his 30-day scribal marathon. He became the voice of God, the intermediary between the divine and the rest of creation. From a humble man, his story is a powerful testament to the potential that lies within a single, faithful human soul. He didn't just escape death, he transcended it. He became a symbol of the ultimate reward for a life lived in communion with the divine. His story served as a warning and a promise to the generations that followed. A warning through the tale of the watchers that even the highest beings can fall, and a promise through his own ascension that humanity is not bound by the limitations of the earth, but is capable of reaching for the heavens. The knowledge he brought back, passed down through Methuselah and his son Lamech, eventually reached the hands of one man, his great-grandson Noah. It was this secret knowledge, this understanding of God's judgment and plan, that guided Noah in building the ark. He didn't just vanish. He left behind a roadmap for survival, a blueprint for righteousness in a world destined for a reset. His legacy is not just a strange footnote in Genesis, but a foundational pillar of the entire biblical narrative, a hidden epic of a man who walked so closely with God that the boundary between heaven and earth simply dissolved for him. He saw the fire of creation, and that he is the ultimate proof that the most profound journeys are not across land or sea, but are the ones that lead us from the terrestrial to the divine. All right, that is all for today's video. Enoch's story is a deep and fascinating one, and we've only scratched the surface. If you liked this video, please subscribe and give it a like to support us. It helps the channel more than you know. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.